Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit ServiceBusinessMastery.com to learn more.
Today's episode is brought to you by one of our show partners, UpFrog.
UpFrog is the OG when it comes to pricing transparency online. They find system replacement leads through paid ads and have developed an entire system to drive those hard-to-find system replacement opportunities, nurture the leads, and book them into sold systems before your team arrives to help you grow your business.
Learn more at upfrog.io.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You are listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tersh Blissett. And if you are watching this live, you'll notice that there's a lot more of us on the screen than normal. It's normally just Josh and I to start off with. But today we have, so Josh and I, we have our spouses on, and then we have the other Josh. And I'll say Josh number one is Josh Kelly. And my Josh.
That's fair.
So we have Josh and Laura Kelly with Clover, and Josh, I'll let you. You know what? I shouldn't let you talk now.
As long as you call me Josh number one, I'll talk.
Well, we'll call you Josh B, so it's a totally different thing. It's not.
That's worse.
Yeah, no, that's the point. Yeah,
Josh is I got it.
Oh.
No.
I feel sorry for you, Josh B, I guess.
All right, Josh Crouch, number one.
Thank you. So,
You're welcome.
we decided about 30 seconds ago what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about a few things, but we're going to start with working with your spouses. All of us have the privilege, on most days, of working with our significant other. And there's always a lot of fun and there's complications. There's a lot of fun, a lot of joy, but there's can be challenges as well, and we're gonna kind of dive into that and go through what that looks like. And I think we're gonna probably drop some industry relevant stuff as well as needed. But I think there's gonna be, I think a lot of people can relate to working with their spouse. I know we have a lot of clients. I'm sure Josh and Laura, you guys do as well. Have a lot of clients that husband and wife do something in the business, even if they're not necessarily in the business usually comes home. So they if they're part of it either way.
that's a fancy intro, man.
I love it.
Yeah, it is.
We're not messing around,
Right? Yeah.
Too legit.
All right, Josh, what were you saying before I cut you off?
I don't even remember now. That's what happens when
Nailed it.
that's what drives Brittany probably nuts the most is she'll tell me something and then I'll think of something else in my brain. Like I don't know if it's a short-term memory thing or it's just like a million things going on inside the brain. I just can't remember exactly what she was talking about.
So this is a great opportunity to share that men's brains are like filing cabinets, and you pull up one file and that's all you're able to work in, and you have to go to the next one. Hold on a minute. I have to put that pile away and go to the next one. So you drop that file off. You've already forgotten it, Josh. That, you know what though? I actually think there's something so true about that, Julie. When Josh and I started working together, I would just load him up with everything on my brain, which can be a lot. And I could feel the overwhelm build. And when I realized that, I didn't think of it that way, which I actually like that analogy. It really, really helped him be able to engage in a conversation from a non-overwhelmed place. I don't
even know if overwhelmed is the right word. It was frustrating.
Frustrating.
It was.
Yeah.
Firefighter.
Hey, one thing at a time. Don't skip to the next thing until we finalize this conversation first.
I think one of the challenges there is, like, for guys, most of the times we are problem solvers. And so one of the things that I've learned is that we have to go into a conversation with, do you want me to solve this problem or do you want me just to listen? Because if you just want me to listen, then I'll just sit here and nod my head. I cannot believe she did that. But if you want me to solve the problem, I was like, well, that's easy. Just stop talking to her.
Oh, Lord. You guys are the worst. It's not that easy. But you guys are the worst.
our pastor shared with us that analogy, the filing cabinet and being able to pull it out and go to the next. But the women is like a ball of wire was their analogy, because the wires intertwined amongst music
Like
that
smart wire.
connects your thoughts. The
Yes.
one thing triggers the next. And so as you're trying to go through these series of thoughts, one thing is pinging off of another. So as overwhelming as it may be for you gentlemen to actually hear us as we're pinging, it's actually very exhausting for our brains to correct one thing after the other. So it's a work in progress for us.
So really quick, for those who are watching or listening to this, Laura and Josh, can you give an introduction of yourself, who you are, kind of your background? Josh has actually been on the podcast, but it's been a long time ago since that was the case.
Yeah. So we'll do this weird. I'll introduce Laura. You want to introduce me? So it's less awkwardish.
Oh, that could be
I
fun.
like it. I like the twist.
So this is Laura Kelly. No, so Laura, those of you who don't know her, she is a super kind, wonderful, beautiful woman, but she is absolutely brilliant. She was valedictorian of Trinity College. If you know what that is, that's more prestigious than Harvard. She came to the United States on a short-term visa, working with VC Capital and working with like Google and others. And I talked her into quitting that job and coming and working with me and marrying me all within a few months.
Best job you ever did, right?
I know, by far. And now, me and Laura own home service businesses across the United States, own really probably the largest in by revenue and by profit and by number of contractors, best practices group in the United States, specifically for home services. And then we help companies with marketing and all that other stuff. And she currently runs, obviously leans into operations a lot, but she really runs the sales and the marketing side.
Yeah. Well,
That was a good introduction, Laura.
That was a tough act to follow.
yeah. I'm grateful for the kind words, but I don't know. I get embarrassed every time. But so Josh Kelly, many of you guys who are listening probably do know Josh. He's quite a history in the space. He, from a business perspective, he helped grow one of the largest residential companies in the United States from $6.5 million to, they closed out last December at 250. Josh exited Parker and Sons. They sold it at around 110. And there was a lot of people, like they grew Parker and Sons in one market, all residential. At the time, they had 7.5% market share. So all of that was very unheard of. So there was a lot of people coming to us saying, how in the name of goodness did you do this? How? I remember the time Josh and I were, becoming even more serious. And Paul really kind of encouraged us to start, well, Josh's dad encouraged us to start this best practices and coaching group. We were in a position to provide real solutions from real contractors. So that's what started Clover off. And right now we've just under 400 members across the United States, across the world, but mainly the United States, some Canada, some New Zealand, and some Australia. But that's a very small chunk of Josh's professional journey. And let me talk real quick about Josh as a husband, I guess, super quick, as it's relevant to the topic. Meeting Josh was a whirlwind. Like I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be in Ireland. I was supposed to be freaking there, and I'm here. And I did know within like just under 48 hours of meeting Josh that I was going to marry him. I never told anybody that except my mom, because it's really embarrassing. Like if someone said that to me, I'm like, she's crazy. Absolutely.
Linger.
But I did. I knew. I knew in all me.
You know what her mother's response was, by the way? She goes, "No, you're not. I'm buying you a ticket. You're coming back to Ireland right now."
That's not what actually happened. What actually happened was she had my brother and sister like stalk the crap out of him on every social platform. Is this him? Is this him? Is this him? And she's sending me all these pictures. But
how many years ago was that? Was that like MySpace stalking, or are we talking like Facebook Live?
5 years ago?
Oh shit! Do I look that old? Yeah, I did MySpace.
I knew the simple listeners even know what MySpace is at this point. Like I don't even know because it was a while ago.
Well, they think MySpace is just like a section of the room that they own. You know what I mean? That's MySpace.
I have a funny thing to say on that, but I'll say it later. But yeah, it was wild. Like my parents met Josh the week we got married. And I say to people, if my daughter does that to me, I'll be so stressed, and I hope she never does. How freaking hypocritical is that? Because it was me really just trusting my gut that it was the right move. And now our families are super close. We go on vacation together, and it's all worked out. But yeah, I guess.
How long was it after y'all met that y'all kind of got married? Or
7.5 months.
7 months, yeah.
5.5 years ago. Well, just under that. But yeah, it's which knowing when I met Josh and that gut feeling I felt amid the normal struggles that come with marriage and running a business together, going back to that feeling, like going back to day one when you met, is a really helpful grounding place to refer to in your mind when things get tough. But anyway, I've kind of gone past his intro and just started talking to our story. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
You're going to have that sometimes. So Brittany and Josh, I'd like to hear y'all's input too. How do y'all work together and not murder each other? Like I couldn't imagine working with Josh every
She has
day.
a great story. Share the one from the party van. So nice. Oh, well, keep the X-rated stuff to yourself. Just the... I'm kidding. No, it was just a really sweet analogy.
There were drinks involved. I know that.
Yeah, it was a party van.
I agree 100%. 100%. Yeah. But I don't live with him, so there's that.
Hey.
Don't lump us all in. Don't lump us into one.
We'll listen, but we might not hear it. It's not active listening.
Or
it's kind
remember
of
it.
bypass listening. Like we'll catch a word or two.
Oh, I can tell in his eyes. I'm like, excuse me, hold on.
Yeah, right.
I can tell you're like doing 10 things over there. I need you to hear me real quick.
She makes me stop, and I'm a multitasker. Like I need to be there. I need to. I can't actively listen to someone without fidgeting. If anybody's paid a close attention to the podcast, that's why I write notes, even though we have people to do notes for us. I still have to write notes because I'm fidgeting. So
yeah. Anyway, keep going, Brittany. Sorry. Yep.
Rabbit like squirrel. Well, so much of that, like there is so often that when spouses have businesses together, that kind of becomes your hobbies as well. I feel like that's the thing that you talk about all the time, and because like so for those who don't know this, so we have a couple of companies together. Y'all have your businesses together, and then Josh and I have a couple of companies together. So there's things that like Julie and I will talk. It throws it back to when she was at the hospital. So like she worked at the hospital, and then I was working in the businesses, and we would come home. Like she would come home from work, and then we would talk about things that weren't HVAC related because she wasn't in the HVAC industry. And so it kind of throws it back to that now whenever like Julie and I start talking about something probably that Josh screwed up. And then she's like, yeah, but I'm here.
I don't know who he's talking about.
Yeah, right.
I've been known to screw up a thing or two. It happens.
And so she's like, well, you should look at this perspective and that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And it feels like a completely different dynamic with that business versus the other with like Service Emperor.
Yeah, you know what I think it is, and this is just like my opinion, but me and Laura are very good about this. Like, as weird as this sounds, and it's not meant to be insulting, but it's just the truth. Like, when people go into business with their spouse, they get lazy on some things.
Oh, yes,
going with a pure business partner, like, yeah, someone's gonna be in charge. Yeah, we're gonna assign roles. Like, we're gonna put together a communication process. We're gonna clearly communicate wins and losses, who's in charge of what, what's happening in the business. And sometimes with a spouse, we tend not to do any of that. It's like, well, we talk all the time. It's like, but do you have organized periods where you talk about specific stuff?
Just set meeting
with a business partner.
That's point, Josh, because I'm a little bit more like operation, visionary, brain focused. Brittany's sales and people. So she helps with the sales and people, like our account management team, stuff like that. So we have the separation of things that we like to do, but we talk all the time. So like when it comes to like having a sales and marketing meeting, because I handle our marketing, we don't actually stop. It's just kind of like one long conversation that just like leads like, oh yeah, we got to do this, we got to do this. And we never actually like, okay, let's actually get some to-do items done. Yeah. Instead of just talking about it. Cause it's so easy.
You do like a level 10 meeting with just the two of
we
you?
have started. We have some other people that we have.
We used to
as well.
We do it with our executive team really consistently. But at the end of the day, if you don't do that, it's two things. Number one, it tends to bleed into every conversation, right? Because you don't have a set time for it.
Correct.
And number two, you never actually like hold each other accountable. Like, and that's like, I know it's your spouse and that's more complicated for sure, but like you're also business partners and you have to be able to do that. And without the normal structure that you would have in a business, it becomes really difficult to effectively do.
I wonder if anyone has ever successfully exited that relationship, like left the job, but not the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, so,
I know people have done that for sure, but it's always been,
I know
like the ones I know are like, they're event-based leaves. So like, hey, they have kids for the first time. Now it's the dynamics change, or they sold the business. So one of them wants to step out or whatever.
I've seen
in the heat of things, it's hard
because they didn't work. I've seen people who sold businesses because they just could not work together.
Yeah. We had a client that they got divorced.
Yeah,
it happens.
During us managing their account. Like we're seeing like emails and stuff, and it's
awkward.
To be, but it's happened.
So you're saying
normalize
it's your fault, is what you're saying.
I think we have to normalize the fact that it's tough, though.
Yeah,
like it is tough. I'm curious.
I gotta stop Josh. Josh has got to stick together. Now we're picking on Thursday.
That's fine. I can take it. He's usually picking on me.
Hey, listen, I am the hair pulled back, shoes off kind of female, so let's go.
Julie, do you want to share one of the things that it does help us, and when we don't do it, it's noticeable as far as separating our personal space versus workspace, because not only do we work together, but we work together in our home. So it's like you wake up in the morning and you get ready together, and then you walk down the hall together, or one might be a couple hours behind the other, and then you get in the office together or next to each other, and then you're working all day, and then you both go to pick up kids and go to soccer, and then you both go home and, whatever. And
where's the romance? How do you keep romance amid that?
Yeah.
I will share too, but I'm curious as to what tools you guys have encountered that have allowed for health in both respects.
So we are very transparent to say that we have some life coaches that also dual as counselors, but the life coach, they happened to come to our church one Sunday to speak, and we realized John and Joe Crosby here locally, they do stuff remotely, by the way, but anyway, they John has a business degree in addition to whatever the degree is called when you are an official pastor. But he is faith-based, but also is super driven and business focused. And then Joe is, a certified counselor, and they have children together. And so they've done business and they've done children. And so they resonated with us. And I knew that that's what Tersh was going to need if we were going to actually succeed in having a professional set of people life coach us or provide counseling services, if you will. Mm-hmm. And that started back in 2018, and we haven't stopped injecting them into our lives anytime that we've needed them.
What about the cross-up threshold?
I'm gonna get there. This is important.
He be rushing my thoughts.
All of wires. It's madly effective. You just gotta have patience.
No, I wanted to give a little bit of the backstory because that's where we learned what he would like me to say. But no, so we have this rule that doesn't. That bird is right there too. So
I didn't realize at first that someone was doing that. I'm like, who has birds in their office right now? Like, what is going on? I'm like, literally, all my windows are closed. No, sorry.
So our bedrooms threshold is where we really draw the line of not bringing work there. And we've discovered that the podcast and automation and AI is also work. So therefore it also has to stay on the other side of the threshold. But the threshold of our bedroom is specifically, oh my God, full of the
What, Josh?
I was going to say, because I text you and it's like probably like 10 o'clock your time, 11 o'clock your time, and you text me back and you're probably sitting in bed.
He is.
Probably. Sometimes, no, I get up and leave. Yeah.
Do you?
Okay.
That's awesome it's awesome that you honor it that much. Seriously, do you get up and leave?
Yeah, I would if I was in my bed, but at 10 o'clock at night, I'm not in bed. I don't go to bed till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
We're night hustlers.
What?
We'll sit up in our office until like 1 a.m. together, totally grinding out after we've put the kids to bed.
You know who doesn't bother me at 1 a.m.? Everyone.
Anybody? Yeah. You know what?
Yeah. I used to do that too. I used to do that for years. I thought I had to outwork everybody. But at a certain point, I just became comfortable with who I am, the success I had, and
Oh, sure.
started, outperforming everyone just because I know more and I'm smarter.
Yeah. No, it's
It's not even that. Yeah.
Oh, the
circadian
humility.
rhythm.
Oh, the humility.
Yes. humble roots there. No, it's the circadian rhythm.
It's a Josh thing. It's a Josh thing. All Josh
see that.
have that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I was a night shift nurse, to be honest. My body just worked well at that time. And we figured out that like Josh Kelly, 1A, whatever option. But so what you were sharing about finding the alignment, something that was shared with me is setting the boundaries and what that looked like for yourself as spouses, but also in the business. Not only setting the targets in business, but having a separate meeting where you're like talking about your dreams and your parenting styles and your household things, in addition to having a separate like business retreat or business meeting kind of mindset. So that way that those things are separate, but then of course they merge together. But
I think it took a long time for us to sit down and say, hey, like these are our life goals, not business goals. Like talk business goals all the time, but to say, okay, these are our life goals. Like that took several years.
I do think there's a lot of this correlation though, because you have a business, right? Some of those things are like, well, what do we want to do with as we grow our income, or we diversify or start another business or whatever that is. Some of that stuff it doesn't separate real well. Yeah.
Being kind of okay with that to a point once it doesn't affect you negatively, like even intimately. But I feel like maybe I blanked out. Julie, what did you say that the tool was that Tersh was trying to get you to speak to? I'm curious.
The threshold.
keeping it at the threshold. So, and there will be moments where something will start our day a little earlier in the office space, and we've gotten out of the shower, we're still getting ready, and I'll be like, permission to tell you this real quick, or
no.
Remind me when we get to the office. I have something that I need to share with you.
No,
I do that. I do say no sometimes. Like no.
Yeah.
There are times when,
like I said, we're not talking about this
mental
right now,
space,
and it's so yesterday, and like I'll speak about tools that have helped us, but yesterday, like we still mess up. Sometimes I'm at capacity, and I
legitimately visited a business that we own in Philadelphia yesterday. I landed at 1:30. I took an Uber to the house. Before I got in the house, Laura met me in the driveway and started hitting me with business shit. I'm like, I haven't gotten in the house yet. Like, can we wait until I get in the house?
Well, at least she waited till the driveway. Wasn't the whole time you're flying.
Yeah, I was like, well, babe, we got a meeting in 30 minutes.
I was like, what?
And I had a whole fucking of shit I had to talk about. So yeah, I do have to be careful and more mindful, especially when he's out of town. But the thing you said on boundaries is so freaking pivotal, because although yes, your relationship is professional, the personal piece, if the personal piece is not solid, the professional piece won't be either.
Correct.
And we had to be careful on that because
Say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah, right.
I want to give a huge shout out to Marcus Storm for sponsoring today's episode.
You've heard of Google ads, Facebook ads, and SEO, but did you know that there's an entire ecosystem, like 80% of the internet, that ads can be served on that you barely heard about?
That's where Marcus Storm operates.
They leverage data science and AI to build customer profiles for your ideal customers and get your ads in front of prospects before they are ready to hire a pro, planting your brand in their minds early and often.
To chat with a team about how they can help you grow your business, visit marcusstorm.ai.
Yeah.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think Laura's on the same page. Like, my number one job above all else is husband, and hers is wife, and parents second, and then business is a distant third. And it doesn't mean we're not if or people. We could do all of them amazing. And I think we do a pretty good job the vast majority of the time. But
So Josh, it's easy to say that once you're successful, but what about whenever
I
you're
think that's
starting
fair.
out and you're in that hustle and you're
that's
like,
fair.
hey, I got to grind.
But
I remember
Josh,
this.
even to that point real quick, I still think, although yes, that is our priorities from a thinking perspective and an on paper perspective, but it can be hard to keep yourself accountable for that to be real, because you're actually spending more time spent is at work.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So with people other than your spouse. So go ahead. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah, so to your point, Tersh, like I had a mentor and he passed away, unfortunately, way too young. But one of the pivotal moments in my life is when I was 13. I skipped school and I went to a sales training by Rick Hutcherson. I don't know if you guys know who Rick Hutcherson was, but one of the best sales trainers in the history of the industry. Absolutely unbelievable. And he got me on the track of doing a lot of things. I read a business book or a self-help book a month since I was 13, and just all this stuff, good habits I built, right? And he told me when I was that age, like, if you chase money, it runs from you and it becomes your slave.
It does.
If you chase a purpose, money runs towards you and it becomes your slave. Now, everyone understands that. Everyone gets that in theory.
Practicing it.
But I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to understand when you don't have to worry about money.
That's so true. That is
So, like, it's like now I get it all the way, right? Like, I don't,
No, sure, yeah,
like
yeah.
it's easier than it's ever been,
Right.
by far. Like, opportunities literally like line up at the door sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Not consistently every day, but not as far off as that as you'd think.
Something else I wanted to. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Judy.
Well, something else I wanted to say about the staying up late and hustling thing, and what I was kind of getting to in my ball of wire thoughts. But Tersh and I do that because we do understand that through the day there are children things that need to be accomplished, and when the kids are getting off of the school bus, our lives, our business focus dials back a lot. If Tersh really needs to finish doing a few things, I will primarily be with the children, but we both have come to the understanding that we both need to be present for the small amount of time that these children are home,
Right.
that we can focus on them and give them some actual time. A lot of times they'll walk in and we're really in the middle of something, and we've set a lot of great boundaries with our children of, I want to hear you and talk about that. I need you to let me have until this time, and then commit to it and actually give your children that time. And to be able to prepare a meal, and not like a full Southern Belle like spread meal every single night, but to actually be together and eat.
Tersh is thinking, like, why not? Yeah.
More trouble.
If this meat and potatoes, Southern Georgia style Georgia boy.
You would have called that pasta of yours, Julie.
Oh, right. But so we've come to the conclusion that, all right, now we're going to a soccer game, and when we come home, we're going to actually get the kids to bed together and clean up the kitchen together. And then we do go back to the office after the kids go to bed, because we both, like, nobody, the field's not needing us, the friends and family aren't needing us, the kids are resting, and we really hustle well together, and it makes for a fun night when you're just up alone together. And
Something that triggered my brain as you spoke about the various things is teamwork and seeing one another really as a team, and like you're like almost one of the same with with
That's true of any team.
with the ability to remain healthy, but like you are a team. And when we try to stop our day at 5:30, because we start our day at 8 and we finish our day at 5:30, and we then become a team as parents and do the nighttime routine and stuff together. And why I think that is helpful is you feel like you actually are a team versus a feeling like, you're just totally in charge of being the one present with the kids. Just because you're a mom doesn't mean that's okay. You're still very much present in the business. And if you're a team, things need to be shared. But I think that needs to be communicated up front. And I think we're like, expectations need to be communicated up front. Responsibilities need to be communicated up front. And then both need to be honored, not just for there to be trust with one another, but also for your children to have those healthy expectations that, yeah, okay, mom and dad leave us most of the day, but at 5:30 we get to enjoy them.
My favorite team sharing. Yeah, my favorite team sharing thing is when I look at my calendar and Brittany just slides in, "Hey, you're picking up the kids today."
Got it.
That's my notice. I had one today actually. Our kids, you guys, Josh, Laura, are they school age yet?
No. We got a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Okay, so
Oh yeah.
for whatever reason,
we're in it.
Wednesdays are half day Wednesdays every single Wednesday. I don't understand it, but it's just the way it's been. And so it's very difficult to pick up our 13-year-old. The older one has a ride from school, but so today I'm picking up. But to your point, like it's shared. It's if she's busy, I'm taking over. If I'm busy, she's taking over.
There's that understanding.
It's just
So Laura, let me ask you. Well, let me ask you about in that little, what you were talking about just a second ago. You kind of threw this in there, and I want to revisit it. And you mentioned a healthy balance of that relationship. Can you talk? It sounds to me like you kind of talk about the fact, an unhealthy balance of codependency of that team.
Yes, right. I guess what I mean is, yes, it's important to be a team and see one another as, when one's let's win together and focus on winning together versus winning individually at the cost of one another. However, I definitely think it's very healthy to have your own identity amid being married and amid being this couple that works together, lives together, is married together, is raising kids together. I think it's very healthy to have outlets that allow you be an individual, because I believe what that does for most people, certainly for me, is it allows me to recharge, so that I can bring my best self to my spouse, to my business. So yes, I think it's so important to see you all as one of the same, and you're just each other's biggest cheerleaders. And when one's doing well, you're freaking so jazzed for them, and when they're down, you're there for them too. But you also there's an element of individualism that still should be protected.
I think
100%.
I think an important part of this too is like, this is my personal opinion, but like balance is actually bullshit. That's not a real thing. Life's about seasons.
Amen.
There will be times where you work your ass off, but like permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Because
there's times
like
that
relationships.
that 100%. There's times where like I take the kids like every time, like in the afternoons. There's times where it's like, hey, I think it was yesterday. The kids came home, or they came to me yesterday afternoon because they're actually on spring break right now, and they let me have most of the day. But then they came to me and said, "Hey, let's go riding," because we live on 250 acres. We have dirt bikes and everything else. So
the first invitation was the trampoline, though.
Oh yes, and I was like, no, hard pass on that one, because like seeing me walk around is one thing, but seeing me jump is a whole different thing. Like that's not coordination.
That's got to be tricky.
No, it's not something that's enjoyable. But anyways, I go out there, like I stop and I go riding with like my youngest
on a dirt bike and in a buggy.
Yeah, and then I figure out that there's something broke on a buggy, so then I got there and I'm working with it. But see, there's times where like I am so focused. Like a couple of weeks ago, Josh and I were building out another course for online courses that teach people how to do these automation things. But I was really hyper focused on doing that, and every time the kids came in here, Julie had to take charge of that, and she just was like, "Hey, I got you this afternoon because Dad needs to knock this out. He's got a deadline to finish this." And so the kids just understood that was going to be the case. But I still, tried to be intentional of visiting them. But there's what you're saying there is exactly right. There's seasons of times where like I'm going to be the go-to person for the kids, and then there's a time where Julie's the go-to person for the kids, and then back to what you were saying, Laura. When we go to events and things, it's so easy for Julie to take on the identity of Tertia's wife. And so I'm very intentional of saying, "No, this is Julie." And like, hey, can you go get Julie?
I'm really proud to rock that title.
But still,
I'm a mush cheese ball.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely Julie Blissett. I have my own identity.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, that's interesting, and I actually admire that you can embrace that. I would have a hard time with that.
Well, I think it's so
embrace what?
funny.
That you can embrace being like embracing the wife, like being like even.
Laura would not be okay with being called Josh's wife.
No, like the fact that if you were introduced that way, you'd be fine with it. I would not be fine with that.
No, and I don't. Yeah, I don't usually introduce myself like that, but I'm like, "Hi, my name is Julie Blissett from ServiceBusinessMastery Podcast."
But she is, and there's times where it's just like, "Hey, this is Tertia's wife," and it may be because they just purely can't remember her name, and that might be the case. But most of the times, I feel like that's not what it. I mean, that's
if you're trying to make her feel better, I'm not sure you're doing the greatest job right now.
Well, no, no, I get it. It's the reality though. That is exactly how it is at these events. Because we go to AHR, like we just were at CAG last week, and so we're at events all the freaking time.
Tertia's name is memorable. I give him that. Julie's this standard old name. But
it's cool though. It's cool though that you have the intent, Tersh, for her not to have that identity. You know what I mean? So, with you having that healthy intent, I think that almost takes care of that in and of itself. But yeah, there's something admirable about if someone were to say, "Oh, this is Tersh's wife," you've relative peace around that. I don't think I do.
Well, I'll say
proud to be his wife. Like, don't hear that incorrectly. I'm so immensely proud, love of my life. I just want to have, my own identity.
That's such a great point, because for our business, a lot of the content, a lot of the stuff that comes out is my face is on it, and it's just there's just kind of the way it's been because founded the company. But honestly, all the stuff that gets done, our account management team, the people in our business, they all go to Brittany because Brittany's fabulous.
Oh, absolutely! You are 100%.
I'm really not.
That's actually, we're going to change you from Josh B to just Brittany's husband.
Yeah.
No,
you know the best thing about Brittany is she doesn't mind telling me how she feels.
No, I have no idea what you feeling.
Don't have to read her mind.
But that communication is great though. Like, you have to be able to speak up with your spouse, and because sometimes relationships, there's one that's the more dominant person of the relationship in a certain segment, and maybe on the other side there's someone that's more dominant in a different way.
I think that's true of all relationships, though. Like, if we're just being honest,
there's a give and take.
Or you're saying like there's a dom and there's a sub in their relationship.
That X-rated.
Okay, dude. Josh is the one that brought it up, not me.
In either, I think in your, I think what Josh Kelly's referring to is either
Brittany's husband, or you mean Josh Kelly?
Yeah, Brittany's husband. That's my fault.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, let me change the title.
See, she's got to go hire someone for
Thank you, Brittany. Yes, that's very important.
Let's try and kick the Josh's asses at pickleball sometime soon together.
Well, then Josh is just going to hire a coach.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
6 months.
That is exactly what's going to happen. I am
little inside joke
an unhealthy obsession.
Jumped on today.
If you're enjoying this content and this episode in particular, please go ahead and whatever program you're on, whether it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to that channel and then leave us a review when you get a chance. We'd love to hear your feedback on the content if it's been valuable for you. That stuff helps us really create better content and get better guests and also grow the podcast. So we really appreciate your support. Now back to your episode.
Ah, yes. Love that. Love that.
Well, now I'm sorry.
Brittany, get out of here. Get out of here, Brittany. There's a leave button on the bottom.
Yes,
Leave studio.
Let's the bright red button.
Bye.
We are so not editing any of that out.
No.
She did say something though that was that I liked. I have heard this from a lot of like long married people who've built successful businesses, is that there does tend to be a person who is more the final decision maker.
It has to be
in one role or the other, and I think that
Sure.
I think that is healthy, and we've decided that although my opinion matters a lot in how we grow our business, Josh's opinion matters a lot in how we raise our kids and cultivate our home life. But if we just can't come to a final decision, one gets to make that final.
I get to make the decisions in business, and home she gets to make the decisions. I think that's natural, and you would do that with a business partner, but people forget to have those initial set expectation conversations. And to be clear, just because someone's in charge of it doesn't mean like that's their responsibility only, right? Like it's still both of our responsibilities.
Yeah.
I think the expectations get learned along the way too, because Tersh and I have been together for 12 years, and in the beginning of him owning the business and then purchasing another business, and he said this on the podcast, so I don't mind sharing it, is like money related, but I completely would make 100% of our income. Something from how I was raised is you live off of one income completely, because the rest is play money after that, savings money, investment money, whatever. But he was completely cool with, listen, I'm going to grind and hustle. I'll make the money from being a nurse and being in the military and doing that. We'll pick up extra this, do that. But you need to focus on growing the business. Like that will inevitably lead to the bigger dreams that we have in life.
Yep.
But along the way, we've had, I mean, our kids now are 9, 10, 14, and 15. It looks a lot different than when they were 1, 2, and then 4 and 5. That was a way different time.
I think it's a lot like having business partners in general. Like especially if the two partners have never worked together, and they aren't like, okay, I have an accounting degree, so I'm going to do I'm not going to do managing the HVAC technicians type thing. Whenever you go into it, and you're especially like two technicians that start out a business together, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that, but neither one of us have ever done either one of them. So you come into it and you're like, maybe that's not a job for me. I like this over here a little bit better. Or, some things you may have to, morph the responsibilities here and there as you grow. And as like you mentioned, Josh, the seasons change in life and business. You may start out as like, all right, I'm the CEO, and then it's like, okay, wait a minute, I'd be better off as the CMO, and then you'd be better off as CEO, and so you kind of sometimes those roles can reverse and
detach your ego from those decisions is helpful.
Julie, you brought up dreams, and I think in the rigor of growing a business, raising kids, working together, traveling together, and traveling together is events, right? A lot of times there's not as much time for like vacation, because then it's like, well, sometimes I just want to be home. That's my vacation. But I'm curious, since my better half left the show here, what do you guys, how often do you guys talk about dreams or bigger goals? Like, do you sit down as like an annual thing, or do you do it regular? Does it just come up in conversation? I'm curious what you guys, both of your answers would be.
Since I just spoke a lot, Josh and Laura, you guys go.
No,
I try to be aware of my ball of wire going.
You triggered a thought for me when you were talking about it, though, because I think it freaking hell, a business should, I believe, be viewed as a vehicle to fulfill your dreams in your life, not
your teams,
your life and your teams, correct,
and your clients,
right? So, amid that should come ideally the accomplishment of dreams. And the activity that we did that hopefully this is helpful for folk is we read a book called it was some investment book. The dude was on Netflix. I don't know what it's called, but the activity was what does your rich life look like? Like, what does that look like? And if you think about it that way, it triggers various like dreams, many of which could be small. Like when we went like really early on, it was like, could we get a maid to come once a week versus every month, or even have a maid at all? So we didn't have to spend the whole weekend doing all the things and then be tired by Monday. Like it can be even the small things, but they can make the journey of growing a business way more rewarding because you feel like you're accomplishing those little things that are moving you closer to living that rich life, or that, you know, doesn't have to be like rich life. It doesn't necessarily just mean monetarily. It's like more peace, more freedom, more. So that was an activity that helped us a lot. We literally just built it out on Trello and wrote a load of things down. And honestly, we'll probably do a sit down and see what we actually have probably ticked off it.
Welcome, Josh.
But yeah, go ahead. I want to hear. You guys probably have a similar activity or something you've done to...
Ours is very it's sporadic, and it's not an intentional sit down of, hey, these are our goals and everything, because that feels like work to me.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain times where it's like, all right, that'd be cool to do. Like, let's see about this. The thing you have to be very careful about my spouse is you have to be very intentional in saying, this is a dream, not a plan for you to do next week.
If I'm
Because
not,
sometimes I'm like,
I'm going to make it happen.
sometimes we are like, hey,
I get
he
that.
mentions in
Right.
passing that it'd be really nice if these trees were cut down. Yeah, that would be nice. I'm just sure that'd be nice. Nice
I
thing.
feel like this one was recent.
And then I
Julie's
come
laughing.
back home
Yeah.
from out of town and they're all gone. Or a stumps are ground.
Yeah, but what's wrong with that?
Well, there were other things that needed to be done just structurally because of the foundation of the ground that those root balls were holding in place because they were on the side of a hill, and now they're gone. And so there's erosion there because we didn't put up a
We
wall.
should have added. There was a step before what you were thinking was a good idea.
Which in passing, I would say, yeah, that's a great idea. One day after we build a retaining wall there.
Well,
Retaining
ju-
wall built, so that's-
Just my opinion, but like straight up, communication is the most important thing. Like if you knew there had to be a
That's
retaining wall, all you have had to do is say, "Yeah, we need to do a retaining wall."
Oh, sure.
And then
The thing about it
the
is,
point right
There
now,
was no retaining wall that got built up, and I was tired of the stumps. So I said, no time for a retaining wall. But you know what? Mr. So-and-so has time to come grind my stumps out. So
I mean, the intention was great, and it was something that we eventually wanted to do. But the thing about it is we just have to be very careful about the way that we have a conversation about things. Like, this is a legit goal that we're going to do, and let's plan the goal out or this target out. And because there are things that she wants to surprise me with, things like we've been talking about X, Y, and Z being like a long-term goal, and then I will be gone for a week or 2 weeks and on a trip, going hanging out with Josh somewhere, and then I come back and it's done, or it's in the process of being completed. And
he doesn't mean like a little thing.
No.
I will hire people, a whole crew, to come up in our house while he is gone. So that, because one person might not be able to get it finished, but if I bring in the interior designer and this person and this organizer, and then he better hope that all his stuff
It's like
is
Julie's playtime when Church is gone.
Yeah, right.
When are you leaving next? I got some other projects I got to get done.
Oh, but it is so good. My intention is to take it off his plate because the man can do all the things. Like I mentioned earlier, he reframed our house, we did all the work, and obviously can do the
Is that why it's crooked?
even though
it is got a little slope to it, a little swing to it.
even though he's wearing a suit and he's changed my oil in a suit, even take off the blazer and did the whole thing. But the man will get into a pair of blue jeans, like you mentioned, riding a dirt bike, blue jeans, t-shirt. He gets on the tractor of the family's tractor and will move all the dirt and make all the things pretty out there, build ramps for our boys on their dirt bikes, do all the things. So my hope is
It's just a time thing for that, but
time. Well,
going back-
just like hiring the maid, or we hired a nanny, and not only did she clean, she did our laundry, she cooked, and she had blended families like from Italy and from Mexico, and so we were so spoiled. She lived in our guest room and would make us breakfast in the morning and do the kids activities.
It wasn't
and,
just
oh,
it wasn't the affording the
saver.
thing, like being able to afford to have her around. It was the amount of freedom that it gave us,
Mhm.
which was really
Sure.
it was helpful.
Well, as you buy back your time, right? I mean,
And that's all I'm trying to do.
Laura alluded to that earlier. It's those little things which I've shared this with my email list recently, because I think every entrepreneur, it can be, this can be small size stuff, especially if you work with your spouse, some sort of executive assistant, whether it's overseas, offshore, whatever, something to take away the little things that take up so much of your time. If it's
email,
paper, like even if it's
say that again,
or email or messages on Facebook, or just little things, things that you don't need to spend your time on, so you can put more focused time into relationships and big ideas.
Well, hello there. This episode is brought to you by CallRail.
Ever wonder where all your customers are coming from? CallRail makes it super easy to track your marketing and figure out what's working and what's not.
Plus, they transcribe and analyze your call center's performance using AI.
Boost your marketing and call center performance by visiting callrail.com/SBM pod.
Right.
If you want more relationships, some of us are happy with the amount of relationships we have.
That is hilarious. I really...
So we don't meet or anything, Laura, and we don't have any real formal tools, but I am very much a list maker and organizer of my thoughts in that way.
Lists.
Well, we do a shared note, and we do have like a 3 months out, 1 year out, 5 year out. We have house targets, and we have children targets. I have vacations that I want us to go on as a family, and things that maybe would take an investment.
I guess that could be a meeting, or like here's my list of long-term targets.
I think it's healthy too. Man, we do that once a year, which is like, I'm like contrary to a lot of people. Like, a lot of people tell you set a 5-10 year goal. Like, I just don't do that. Like, I think goals like a ladder. I want something I can reach up and grab.
Sure.
And then just keep focused on the next rung.
What, Josh? Let me ask you this: what happens when you reach those goals? Like, what happens when you have like a target? Because like, I have a friend of mine that has a helicopter framed on his wall, and he's like, I see this every day. I want to get that. Like, that's my drive. But at some point, when I started businesses, or when I started a long time ago, and I was like, okay, successful would be have a house. Not worried about any bills, like mortgages paid, and like that's when I consider successful in my life. Have the vehicles that you want, and then now you've reached that point in life, and so you're just like, okay, let's set other goals. And is it okay to keep setting these goals?
Yeah.
Or are you, because the problem with setting another goal immediately afterwards is the fact that you could potentially never be satisfied, or like, hey, every time I reach this goal, I have to set another goal. So then it's like in your brain, it's like, all right, this is a never ending cycle of let's keep doing more, because every time I set it, it's like a moving target. Now I have another goal.
Something I want to speak to, Tersh, on what you said. And I think even Josh Kelly needs to work on this. There's a difference between being satisfied and being fulfilled. Seriously. Like, you can never be satisfied, because you always want to grow more and get whatever, because it portrays growth, right? But if you're not fulfilled, when you get that thing, you're not going to be fulfilled either. There's a really great TED Talk from a guy called Sean Acker. It's one of the top TED Talks, and he speaks about, if you're not happy or fulfilled along the journey, and you fool yourself into thinking that when you accomplish X, you'll then be fulfilled, 1,000 gazillion%, yes, it's a lie. You're going to get there and be just as unfulfilled. So, yes, it's okay to be unsatisfied once you're still fulfilled. There's nuances to those too. It's okay to want the helicopter, but if you're telling yourself, well, I'll feel like I made it, then I'll be fulfilled, then I'll have self-worth, bananas. So right there, and you won't either.
That's the joy and fulfillment versus just happiness. Like, this doesn't need to be an emotional happiness realm, like the true joy and fulfillment of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Brittany's husband.
Brittany's husband, Josh B. I was just going to add something. So we started doing this.
Let's see if I can change his name on here.
like 2 or 3 years, I think it was 3 years ago, where every December, so we obviously, being a business center, we'll do our annual planning together.
Yeah.
For the business. But along with that, I'm like, it would be really cool because reflection, every time I reflect, when I take the few opportunities to actually reflect on where we were and where we are now, it brings me a lot of happiness. But I do it often enough as entrepreneurs. It's like, got to get the next thing. Like Josh said, the next rung. It's just like, it's never good enough, even though it is good. And what we started doing is I schedule and we write an email. Where are the kids at? What are they doing? What's their personality like? How was their school year? Whatever. And then we schedule it.
Oh, personality, that's easy. Asshole.
We schedule it December 31st of the following year to come back. So it's almost like we wrote like a real short, it's short, but like a real short story that we get to revisit. And like, oh, wow, there was a lot that happened this year. Because otherwise we don't know. We don't actually think about that stuff and reflect on.
You know what really makes you do that is Google stupid memories that it keeps popping up in your Google photo album. She's like, it'll pop up. She was looking at Japan yesterday when she was in Japan in 2015. And it was like, wow, things have changed a lot since then.
I'm like, oh, I was a baby. Look at my hair. Look at my face. But our kid ones, oh, my whole heart. Like our 10-year-old son had a little bit of a speech impediment until he was like 3 or 4 years old. He couldn't understand a lick of what he was saying.
But he just talked.
Oh, but it was so... And then our daughter, like we were in Ohio and she was showing off in my video for daddy because I was like, show daddy your goggles. And she like put them down on her face and was like dancing. And just those Google memories.
The personalities have changed.
But I like the email idea. We should do that one.
That's a good idea.
It is a really good idea.
Good job.
No, something we've all touched on a little bit is like trading responsibilities and like bouncing things on to who it makes the most sense for. Something that we had originally done verbally, but like Tersh had shared, we now don't necessarily have to speak it into fruition. But there are days where I'm like, I'm at a 15%, and if you only have 15%, then these kids are eating bowls of cereal for dinner. Like it is
ramen noodles.
Oh my gosh! Oh, they would
coming into it, but having the conversation, going into the conversation, like at the end of the day, it's. I feel like it's easier when you're not working together, because you come home and you can see each other. All right, as soon as you see each other, it's like, hey, I have 100%. I have 50%. So I'm going to need your 50%. But when you're working together all the time, you have to communicate. Like we can watch each other and see each other like starting to fall down and like, okay, we got to, change up. Let's focus on other things. But
I have to watch my verbal energy from across the room. I'm like, okay, don't respond like that because Tersh is going to pick it up and chop somebody's throat off if he knows how frustrated I am.
Right. Yeah. And that's the other thing. I have to be very careful of the fact that we have businesses and we need to stay professional. And like, if somebody else lashes out at Julie, they may just be having a bad day, but like taking the husband out of the equation and like taking offense as if that, like someone's talking to my spouse that way versus like they're talking to, their boss that way.
Oh, that's a good point.
So like,
I shouldn't pull my hair back and about to come across the
There's times where it's like, you can lose attitude or find another job. Like, and I don't know what the situation is. Maybe they needed the attitude. Like maybe it was deserved. I don't know. But sometimes you have to just be very careful of like,
for sure,
taking that,
remaining unemotional is one of the most difficult parts of leadership, in my opinion.
Do you guys?
I have a problem with it.
Emotionally, do you guys find that one of you will lash out a little bit quicker, and the other one's more calm and reserved, and like is like the balance that the other person needs? Or is that just?
I think no. It happened. This is something that's very really weird about Josh and I's relationship. I hope it always goes this way. I don't know. When one's down, the other one tends not to be, and when one's and vice versa. Cool. And I'm so freaking grateful for that because the other one just holds the fort. Then Yeah. I'm so grateful for that. But I think the exercise you just alluded to, Tersh, really facilitates awareness of that. So you could actually you have the opportunity to communicate where you're actually at.
At the core, though, I mean, we do have different personalities. I am much more even keeled. I'm one of the most even keeled people. I mean, I don't really get real super high. I don't get low at all. Laura is more emotional than me. She's more passionate and stuff than me, and like that has amazing sides, but it also has a downside sometimes too. So I tend to be the one that thinks things through and is calmer and doesn't react as much. And
so what I hear is Laura flies off the handle and stuff.
She handles
not often,
not
often, but nobody's perfect, not even Laura.
There's something. I definitely do, though. I do think the hardest part of leadership is remaining unemotional and seeing things from a 360 perspective, which I believe is pivotal to seeing things for what they really are. But go ahead.
Well, and having emotions and being emotional, I feel like can be different because overly emotional or irrational in a situation, I feel like is different than having passion and drive and even just being queued up on your sensitivity or whatever it may be.
Right.
I think that brings the human element, which working with your spouse and realizing we are human, we have the ups, the downs, and to be able to support each other. Like you talking about having the high and the low. I love when we are like both kind of on cloud nine and we're super grinding, and that's really great. But I also just appreciate so much when I am completely exhausted and Tersh is doing 8 loads of laundry because we have all the kids, and he doesn't complain and is just, oh no, oh gosh.
That's why he's smelly.
He is like the straight and narrow laundry.
Yeah, I'm OCD about laundry.
So I'm super just grateful. It fills my cup. And that's what, even from across the room in our offices, I'll look over, and if it's a work thing, if it's a personal thing, whichever it may be, but if it's something that means something to me, I'm so intentional to be like, oh boy, you filling my cup up today. I am like so fulfilled.
I learned all I have to do is build an Excel spreadsheet.
You're an act of kindness. You're an act of kindness. That's still, that is such a tip though, to knowing one another's love languages. Like I think that's freaking like clearly you're an act of kindness, just how you described that. Acts of kindness.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's harsh. Well, and for me, I'm quality time and physical touch. Mm-hmm.
You are
walk by and be like, I'm like,
really?
Absolutely.
How you described if he does X. That's an act of kindness, and that's what fills your cup. Interesting.
Well, because he shows love better that way. The quality time and the physical touch have to be super intentional for him. It doesn't come as easy. So acts of service is actually his receiving love. We started to not do the love language. That's important, and I do think that speaks volumes. But something else that we learned was the love cup, and that's why I used it that way, talking about fulfillment. But the cup can be things that go outside of the love language. Like,
elaborate. I think that's interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, support, respect. Like, if you remove those from my space, my cup isn't fulfilled. So I know the type of non-cheerleader support that Tersh needs for the drive and hustle. And in his downslope, like, if I'm that, like, he can completely regenerate. Mm-hmm. And then, things like, anything that's more specific to yourself, even things like sex, getting you a drink. Like, this man, he turns down our bed and puts our electric blanket over my side of the bed and pillow and puts it on 10. So my bed side is so comfortable. And he's been doing that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm coming to bed. I am so fancy. I am so fancy right now. Oh, and
no,
he's covering his whole face up.
He does not want you to tell people this. I love it.
That's great. That's that's wonderful.
And it's been a learned thing. And honestly, I think he just started doing it because it was something kind. Maybe he thought I would like it. I don't know. But I think the reaction and like how blushed I become, how I was fulfilled. Yes, because you know where the threshold is, right? No, it's only but
I could elaborate.
Tersh like, now it's wrapping up.
Yeah, right. No, but I think I did it. And just to talk about fulfillment, the cup can be personal things, work things, especially when you're a business partner, there are things that, like Josh and Laura spoke on, that one person really should be doing more of the other. And when Tersh is able to dial in something I've identified, like building equipment out or something, there was something inside of our system that I just really needed him to do. I'm sure I could figure it out, but this man's touch needs to be on it. Oh, when he like gave me the time and started doing it all, I'm like, oh, I'm just so excited. I'm like, my little tail's a wagging.
I love that.
And I am so ornery like that all the time. He's like, I don't know how I work with you.
True story.
True story. Yeah. Anyway, we try to keep it fun and lively because working together isn't that. And I think that's these episodes where we've ever done spouses, like Laura before the show mentioning, I think we should talk about the down and dirty of real life spouses working together. They've been the most popular shows, I feel like. Not that you boys aren't fun and fancy, but just something real life.
Well, we
Very
bring
humble.
the real rock stars on, which is the spouses, and that's why our ratings go up.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just intermittently sprinkle us.
Cool. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us, really, truly. If anybody has any questions, we didn't really talk about Clover a whole lot, but how can they connect with you and learn more?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just go to growwithclover.com, www.growwithclover.com. If you want to have a deeper conversation with us, just go ahead and email support@growwithclover.com and ask for who you want to speak to, and we'll make sure to make time for you. So that's support@growwithclover.com. But hey, being married to your spouse and working with your spouse and living with your spouse is tough, but there are ways to make it fulfilling, and injecting playfulness, just like you said, Julie, is really powerful. But yeah, I'm happy. We're obviously happy to talk about how to grow a home service company, but how to enjoy it too. So thanks for having us on, guys.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Until we talk again next time, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week, and we'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit ServiceBusinessMastery.com to learn more.